Hello, I am 8mm Mauser Man, and you'll notice I am in a slightly different location than I usually film. In fact, right there you can see the corner of my usual backdrop when I'm recording videos inside of my house. Now, where I am right now is my bedroom, and today we are going to be talking about dry fire practice. Now, dry fire practice can be a contentious issue. And the number one reason for that is that when you dry fire, you break the first rule of the 4 rules of gun safety that most people hear, which is treat every gun like it's loaded. So we should talk about what dry fire practice is. Well, dry fire is what I just did. Dry fire is picking an object in your house and using that as a target to practice without ammunition around. I have several rules that I follow when I dry fire. So the first thing we're going to talk about is safety for dry firing, as well as some skills to make it a productive thing, and maybe some drills or things like that that you can run to make it practical for you. Now, if you are dry firing inside of a room, in my opinion, it's probably best suited for handguns, although some practice with rifles can be good, such as reloading drills or things like just, drawing the gun from a low ready and getting it pointed at a target. Some things like that can be useful, but primarily what you'll see or how you'll see people talk about it is with handguns. So the first thing that I do when I'm going to dry fire is I double check, triple check, quadruple check, make sure that that gun is unloaded. So I'm going to pick up this gun that is on the table right here. This is a CZ-P09. I'm going to open it up and lock the slide back. I'm going to look inside of the chamber. I'm going to check it with my pinky. I'm going to close the slide. And then, right before I'm ready to do it, I'm going to check it one more time just to be extra sure. Now, one policy that I practice is when I am dry firing, I do not have any live ammunition within arm's reach. In fact, I try to have all of the ammunition or magazines for that particular gun locked in my safe when I dry fire. So here are my CZ-P09 magazines. Let's do that right now. Now, with the ammunition locked away and everything safe as it appears, I'm still going to double check the guns before I pick them up again. But with everything safe, we should be ready to talk about how I dry fire and how I find dry fire useful. Now, this handgun was brand new and I didn't have any experience with it. And what I was realizing was that the grip, it came with 3 different grips and it had the smallest grip installed. Now I have kind of large hands and I found that uncomfortable. So I needed to practice with the other 2 grips and see if they would work for me. One of the things that gave me the ability to do was just practice pointing and shooting without expending ammo if that wasn't useful, and also gave me the ability to change out those grips in an environment like my house, rather than needing to be at the range where things can get lost, where things can get dropped, where springs and pins can fly across the room while you're doing such an operation. In my house, those things are a lot less likely to happen, although they are still possible. Now, since this handgun was brand new, I didn't have very much experience with it, and so I wanted to use dry fire practice as a way to just get some familiarity with this handgun in particular. I haven't shot handguns very much, but I've had multiple people mention that when I pick up a handgun, I do the right things, I hold it the right ways, and I grip it the right ways, and a lot of that just comes from dry fire practice because, well, 9mm ammo, especially right now, is extra expensive, and dry fire can be a good way to just get down some of those basic fundamentals. So, the gun is unloaded, I'm going to hit the decocker, and with this gun, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from low ready. Now, if I had a holster for this gun, I would have it in the holster. This one's new and I just haven't gotten a holster for it yet, but I'm going to have it from low ready. I'm going to draw and point on target with it in double action, fire the double action trigger, and sometimes I'll just practice that double action pull. I won't practice the single action pull. But another thing that you can do, and this is to help practice with resets, is you can get it on target, fire, and then pull the slide back, reset, and do it again. Now, that is a drill that you can practice all day long and train lots of different skills. So, let's get it ready again. It's just good to get that muscle memory for a presentation for that particular gun. Now, I'm just shooting at a little oil bottle that's sitting on top of a piece of wood about 7 yards away from here to the end of my closet. Another way that dry fire can be useful is for things like drawing from the holster. Now, drawing from the holster can be dangerous to do live fire because by accident, your finger can get on that trigger, and many people have accidentally shot themselves while drawing from the holster. So let me follow the same practice again. Check and make sure that the gun is unloaded, do a visual inspection, check with my finger, and look and just be extra sure that that gun is unloaded. And I know the 2 magazines that I have for this gun are locked in my safe that is right over there, so they're not with me. Okay, all of that being said, I am ready to do a couple of dry fire drills with this handgun. Now, I want to use this as a carry gun, and I want to, when I go to the range, I do draw from the holster. But since some people have been known to cause issues drawing from the holster, I wanted to practice a few times at home beforehand. And even now I do it because, well, I can't get to the range quite as often as I'd like to with this handgun. And so if I draw from the holster with dry fire practice, it is a good way to keep those things up to snuff to some degree, even though nothing really can replace real shooting. Now you'll notice one of the things that happened there was I fumbled around with my shirt, and that's one of the things that can happen when you are dry firing or when you're practicing on the range too. Many people shoot regularly or they carry regularly, but they don't actually draw from the holster that often. They don't have that kind of experience. In fact, there are a number of public or private ranges that don't allow you to draw from the holster. And so if you want to get that practice, dry fire is a good way of doing it. If you want to, you can use a shot timer. I have a shot timer app installed on my phone, and sometimes I do practice with the shot timer, but since I'm recording this video right now and my phone is also my camera, I'm obviously not going to do that right now. Now, another thing that you can practice is reload drills. Right now, I'm going to grab my Smith & Wesson Model 36. The cylinders are empty, as you can see, and there's no ammunition around. All of the ammunition is locked in my safe, although I do have some just extra rounds lying around, like training ammunition that's over there. But it's outside of arm's reach. I see it, and it's inside of a box. It's not just lying around. So no accident is going to happen unless I do some very foolish things to get it there. But I do have a speed loader loaded with 5 snap caps. A snap cap is a dummy round, and it has a little bit of rubber in the back so that it can absorb that firing pin blow. Now, with the 2 handguns I was just firing, I do not have snap caps. Well, I do have 9mm snap caps. I wasn't using them in this instance. However, this 38 Special is pretty old, and so I use snap caps when I dry fire with it, just to make sure that the firing pin stays safe and the gun doesn't damage itself. However, it's also nice to practice reloading drills with this gun because you need to have some sort of stand-in for the rounds as you're putting them in the chamber. With an autoloader, you can just use an empty magazine, but with a revolver, you do need some sort of halfway decent stand-in. So I have speed loader, I have my revolver. This Model 36 is a 5-shot J-frame. So because of that, when I bought these snap caps, which came in a pack of 6, I got enough to fill a speed loader, and I got 1 extra, which is actually kind of nice. And the reason for that is because I can practice, just like I did before, presenting, firing, and then doing a solid reload. So here's what that would look like. And again, some point I'm going to have a holster for this gun. I just got it though, so I haven't bought a holster quite yet for it. I do have the one that came with it, but it's a left-handed outside the waistband holster. Not really something that's, in my opinion, worthwhile for me to practice. All right, so that is what a drill could look like with this handgun. These snap caps are really easy to lose, so you'll notice I did it over my bed instead of just smacking it down on the floor. That's the kind of thing that I would do on the range, but these snap caps, they roll under places, and so I just don't want them to get lost. So I'm going to do that drill one more time with the speed loader. It's just an HWS speed loader. Now, one other thing that I like about dry firing is that you can try out new equipment. So, the first thing I got for this J-frame was a HWS speed loader. So you put it in, you twist it, and then you are ready to go. But I was making an order from a website, and they had a really good deal on some speed strips. So I wanted to test out the speed strips and see how they did. So let's watch my reload, the same drill, but this time using a speed strip instead of an HWS speed loader. That one was pretty sloppy. Let's try it one more time. I didn't necessarily like my grip there, but you can see that I get to try out new equipment with the dry firing. Now, I've tried it with the speed strips a few times. I do think they're faster than single loading, and I've also tried it with the HWS speed loader. I would rather use a speed loader personally than speed strips, just with the experience that I've had with them so far. So to me, it seems like the speed strips are well manufactured, and for range use, like if I just want to get some rounds into the gun quicker, on the range, just like how I might use stripper clips to reload AR-15 magazines or something like that, I think that makes perfect sense. But personally, if I was in a self-defense type situation, I would much rather have the speed loader than the speed strips. Again, that's not a claim on what's best for you, just my experience so far, but I still have very limited experience with this revolver and with these speed strips. One other thing that I like about dry firing in my home is that I can practice low light drills. Now, it's hard oftentimes to go to a range, or in some places to find a range that's open at night for you to practice shooting in the dark. So if you don't have that opportunity, this is one way that you could practice shooting in the dark, even if you can't actually shoot in the dark. And even if you can shoot in the dark, it's harder oftentimes to get to a range at night, so this might be a way you can just practice pretty easily. I tend to do dry fire practice a few times a week before bed, and so I just shut all the lights off sometimes and practice doing it with a flashlight instead of with the lights on. So I'm going to turn off this lamp behind me and do a few drills like that. Although I don't know how much you'll be able to see. Before I get started, sorry, I am just going to one more time check the gun because I haven't used this gun for a little bit. And again, since I am treating a gun like it is unloaded, I'm just going to be extra careful to make sure that it really is. Okay, so gun double checked again. Let's do this. Okay. Okay, that is with the CZP-09, but let's do one more drill. So a gun that I'm looking at carrying, and that's why I have this inside the waistband holster, is my CZ82. If I'm going to be carrying my CZ82, it doesn't have a flashlight mount on it, which means that I would be using an external flashlight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut the light off again. I'm going to have my flashlight out and I'm going to point it at my target. Then I'm going to draw my gun from concealment and fire on the target. Because likely if I'm in a situation where I have my flashlight out and I see something, I probably won't have my gun in my hand. Okay, but again, double checking, unloaded and unloaded. All right, flashlight in left hand, scanning. Okay, let's try that one more time. All right, let's talk about a few final things about dry firing. The first is that muscle memory can be very, very important. In fact, that's why something like this, even though you're in your home and you're not at an actual range, can be very helpful. It's teaching your muscles how to work to draw the gun, point it, and pull the trigger. So muscle memory can be very important. However, when you do dry fire, one of the things that you do train your brain to do is pull the trigger a lot, because you're assuming the gun is unloaded. Now, you are training your brain to think, I'm in my home, this gun is unloaded, so you do just need to be extra cautious there. Because you are training your gun in that way, I have heard of people who have gotten done with dry fire practice, and then when they were done, they returned their gun to the ready position, which was magazine in and they put a round in the chamber, and then they pulled the trigger out of habit. Dry fire is something that needs to be done very, very carefully. But also it can give you a lot of advantages, especially with ammo being as highly priced as it is right now. If you can't afford to go to the range and shoot, dry fire can still help you gain some proficiency, especially with a new gun where you're still learning fundamentals, without actually spending that money. Dry fire is completely free as long as you have the other things you need. If anything, you might just need to buy some snap caps. I have just one other thing I'd like to show you, and this is something that I don't know what it's actually called, but I've heard it called the penny drill, or at least that's what I'm going to call it. Okay, gun is unloaded. So what you can do while you're dry firing, because one of the biggest issues that can throw handguns off target is poor trigger control. So if your front sight is flat, you can take a penny and set it on top. Then let me decock it, see if I can keep the penny on. Okay. Set the penny on top, point it at your target, and pull the trigger without the penny falling, exactly like that. It's especially easy to try this drill with double action handguns because as long as you keep the penny on that sight, you can just keep pulling the trigger. I think my record so far is something like 24 before I said, okay, I'm done, we'll call that pretty good for today. Now, it works better with some handguns than others. For example, this CZ82 has a rounded over front sight, so the penny doesn't really work on the front sight, but it does have a flat rear sight on the top. So let's try the rear sight. I think maybe because the rear sight's so close to the hammer, even though it didn't move very much when I shot it, it did still knock it off. Now, that could have been me and maybe I'm just coping, I don't know. But we do have a flat frame on the top, so let's try this one more time. Okay. You see how the penny drill is supposed to work. If you have something like a Glock or another striker-fired handgun, you can just take your one shot and then rack the slide and put the penny back on. Now, while you should be careful dry firing is a way that I have gotten a lot of practice time in with guns that I can't necessarily take to the range all the time. Ammunition is expensive, dry fire is free, unless, of course, you shoot something you're not supposed to. Now, I am 8mm Mauser man, and I have spent a lot of time dry firing. But I, and my pets, and my roommate, and my washing machine all lived on.
Which proves it's hard to get the best of a man named John.
John.